Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to explore with you why one of the simplest tools ever created has saved countless lives and what it can teach us about making better decisions in our lives. And here the title, Why Checklists Save Lives, that gives you kind of what that tool is. So let's picture pilots log thousands of hours in sunshine, storms, everything in between. And let's say the captain before departure says, let's skip the checklist today. We've done this a thousand times. And let's say you're familiar with what goes in aviation. My question to you, would you still get on that flight? What do you think? Probably not. Because pilots don't use checklists because they lack experience. It's because they are experts, but they know they can forget something. uh, and especially under pressure. And and here are the factors. We say we are human. What does that mean? It means we say it when uh, we forget something, we do mistakes. We say, "Ah, we are human." Like, right? The- And memory was never built to be perfectly reliable. That's probably what it means. Because of distraction, multitasking or switching between tasks, um, fatigue, overconfidence, and the problem here is not intelligence. So let's not confusing memory with intelligence. Um, it's not about intelligence. It's a problem about memory that is not designed to be perfectly reliable. And engineers know this because when they design good systems, they make sure they account for uh, people making mistakes. So where this idea of checklist was formalized in aviation, it's 1935 where when the U.S. Army was evaluating a new airplane, Boeing Model 299, and I think it's B-17 at that time, maybe prototype, but it was a sophisticated airplane. It was something that is more advanced, far beyond any previous airplane. So during the demonstration flight, something went terribly wrong. The aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff. The investigation found that the pilots had forgotten to release a control lock before takeoff. It wasn't because they lacked skill. The airplane had become too complex for anyone to rely solely on memory. So rather than concluding that the aircraft was too complicated to fly, or we can't use this, pilots created a simple solution, a written checklist. And that small change transformed aviation today, and checklists became a standard part of every commercial flight, which helped make travel or air travel um, one of the safest forms of transportation. So the wrong question to ask, how do we build perfect people? We can work on development of people, but the wrong question is to ask how to build perfect people. We know the answer to that. The actual question is how do we build systems that still work when people make mistakes? So we can work on development of professionals, help them have the best knowledge, the best tools, and all that. But we need to design systems that account for mistakes. And that's the whole game. It's redundancy, verification, cross checks, checklists. Because the goal is never to eliminate human error, but to mitigate it, to make sure the system can account for it, and to make sure that a small mistake doesn't create a catastrophic event. And of course, here the idea is about consistency is going to beat confidence. Um, and not just of course in just aviation but in every task that we do, whether it's a trip, presentation, exam, building a network, securing account, making major purchase, overseeing an enterprise. There are a lot of examples to discuss. And professionals in medicine, construction, manufacturing, cybersecurity all rely on checklists now because they know that consistency matters more than confidence. And in reality, they are a sign of expertise. Um, it, so the common mistake, or I should say the misconception, somebody would not use a checklist because they think it's for beginners, and and that's itself a mistake, right? So checklists are not for beginners. They are a sign of expertise. It takes a skill to make a checklist. It takes knowledge to know what order, if there is an order in the checklist and what the order needs to be. There is a lot of things. There is a lot of things that go into the checklist. Then improving the checklist over time. It could be an iterative process. Um, Depends on what task it is. So the question here is, what can I put into a system so I don't have to depend on memory? That's really the question. And because checklists are only designed um, to protect against the failure mode um, of skipping, missing something, doing something before something else in wrong order or something like that. So we need to understand, and that's why I will make other videos about other foundations, other principles. What's in the checklist also needs to be correct, um, so you make sure you're doing your tasks the best way or the optimal way. And here the incident I'm going to talk about is the Gimli glider of Air Canada Flight 143 in 1983. This is another well-known incident that happened. Uh, the the captain and the first officer, they had their checklist and they confirmed the fuel was loaded. However, there were things that happened before. There was error in calculation. Um, because Air Canada or even Canada switched to metric system. The 767 was one of the first Air Canada planes using kilogram instead of pounds. There was some technical errors, so they redid manual calculation, and the math was not correct, and that caused the fuel to be not enough for the flight, and the 767 ran out of fuel in cruising altitude. However, fortunately, the captain and the first officer were very skilled, very knowledgeable. They had great experience, and they managed to not to get to the destination and recall using Air Force runway at Gimli. So they managed to bring this airplane as a glider because it ran out of fuel. Just like the space shuttle coming back, and unfortunately they made almost a good crash landing, and there were no fatalities. Um, so this is an example from aviation where the checklist was there. However, the error was in the math. So we need also to discuss the math and the other components that go in checklists to make sure we have uh, the overall understanding and on how to critically think, problem solve, and reflect on these ideas. So great engineers, and let's say everyone else, don't trust memory. They build systems that make success repeatable. And of course, if you enjoyed this, join me next time as I discuss other principles and other incidents. And my goal always, how can we look at this and learn from it so we can make better decisions? Thank you.